as far as my own book is concerned, it's unfortunate, but I cannot disclose because I've had bad experience before disclosing to even our own people. And then the people are mischievous, they go to try to do things and people try to subvert and block the book and start petitions against it. And this book will put on the defensive some very big names. And we are right now, what we are doing is collecting all the evidence, all the online evidence, making a backup copy, making a mirror image, because the moment they find out, they're going to start scrubbing their websites.
I had the opportunity to get to know Rajiv ji for the past 20 plus years, since my college days at Rutgers University, when I was a sophomore, and I first met Rajiv ji, who had a deep impact on me personally and many other young Hindus who have either born and raised in the United States or have been raised here since their childhood. So I'm personally thankful for Rajiv ji for starting this movement and inspiring many of us through this work. When we started CoHNA almost 2 years ago, the first session that we did was with Rajiv ji, and through his inspiration, we have been able to come forward. So thank you, Rajiv ji, and welcome today.
So thank you, Nikunj, for such an amazing event. Nikunj has been working on this particular event for about a year, and his team have worked very hard. I just want everybody to know. I'm glad we have 1,100 people registered to participate in this. I'm also delighted that we have Madhu Kishwar here. She also has been a fellow traveler on this long and convoluted journey for 25 years. We go back to the 1990s. So this is an important event for me to celebrate, to commemorate, not only the book, but actually the movement. The Breaking India idea started in the 90s when I discovered that people from our side were complaining one episode at a time, but not able to figure out what's the big framework. And they were very localized in their view within India, had a very limited view of what's happening outside India. The problem is a global one. The framework you need is a global framework. You cannot really develop that sitting in India. You can develop one part of it and wonder where are these things coming from and kind of oversimplify or stereotype what the global dynamics might be. But you really need to be somebody situated elsewhere where all these problems are coming from, be very familiar with how the system works, be very confident, be able to go look into private records and files and file under the freedom of information, intervene in their conferences, hire people who will go infiltrate and figure out what's going on. All of that I did since the 90s. But one of the major events, before I say that, let me tell you what I'd like to cover overall in this. I want to cover a bit of the history, which I will just talk about, of how this book came about. I want to discuss what I faced when the book came out and how the book has made an impact over time. But I'd like to hear other people's views who've been part of the story. How the Hindu community, the Indian community has responded and where we're falling short. I also want to talk about the state of the Kurukshetra today. And when I talk about the state of the Kurukshetra today, it includes both a discussion on the other side, how they become stronger, what they're up to, and also a discussion on our side. I feel that our meetings and gatherings do not do enough self-critique. We don't do enough self-critique. We like to either pat our back, feel good. The feel-good drug addiction is very strong. Everybody wants to feel good, either by saying how great we are or by knocking down the other side without really understanding the depth and magnitude of their accomplishments. So I think this self-critique is lacking, and I want to do a bit of that. And then I'll talk about what are some of the projects that Infinity Foundation has going forward. So with that kind of a plan of my talk today, let me get started. So the book is the result of several episodes and interventions I came across at the American Academy of Religion. I used to go to every single year's conference for many, many years. We were donating, we were contributing to the Academy, the American Academy. We had funded Columbia University, University of California, Harvard University, all these kind of places, spent a huge amount of money. And so I was very hands-on in terms of engaging them, looking at all the dissertations that came out, going to all their conferences and their events. And whether I was on a panel or sitting in the audience, I would raise my hand and interact a lot. And, they started finding that I'm a bit of an anomaly. First, there was nobody else funding India and Hinduism. Nobody else. With the exception of SP Hinduja from in Geneva. He had a few programs. But nobody else, none of these things that we now have existed at that time, engaging the academy. It was pretty much abandoned. And nobody really cared. The views of the VHP in America and the RSS and the BJP was that, it doesn't matter. We're worried about what we're doing in mandirs, and we're doing very well. We're making a lot of money. So they were not concerned about the intellectual dimension, and in some ways actually cynical about the intellectual dimension. So this was a lone project. And I found that things were troubling. While I thought that by funding them, I could influence, but that was not the case. And I started getting deeper and deeper to analyze what is the cause of all this happening. It's not enough to know, it's not enough to compile a list of incidents. You have to go deep and figure out what's causing it, who is behind it, who's funding it, what's their agenda, what's their history. You got to do all of that. So I started doing that and giving talks in the 1990s. Then some e-groups started. There was a Yahoo groups, whole phenomenon of Yahoo groups, and we created one of the largest Yahoo groups at that time. We had a few thousand members, very, very vibrant. And then we started doing our own conferences, our own events, rather than funding the other side. And, I have to tell you very honestly that I was very disappointed with the lack of support from the Indian consulate and Indian embassy or the Indian government or culture ministry or anybody in India on the government side. I was very disappointed by the lack of support from the Sangh Parivar at that time. They were not interested. They were so inbred and patting each other on the back as, how things are going well for us in North America, but not really aware of these kind of problems. And what changed for me is something very surprising. This will surprise you. When I was attacked by my opponents, then my people started taking me seriously. Now, this is very strange. It is thanks to Wendy Doniger and her students that I became known. I mean, because they started, one fellow in Emory University called the FBI that he thinks I'm a dangerous fellow, and he went to the academic conferences talking about me, and he got a grant to go around the US and Europe talking about the threats that he's facing, violent threats he's facing from a guy like me. And what am I doing? What are my threats? I'm writing. That's what I'm doing. I'm writing. And these writings are considered a threat by him. And Dinah Eck at the American Academy of Religion in one of the conferences wondered why the FBI is not keeping track of certain Hindu people, like they're keeping track of some Muslims. So why not the Hindus also? And remember, she was the Harvard senior most person in Hinduism studies. And here is a person studying Hinduism as her whole career and wondering why the FBI is not targeting and investigating Hindus. So I've been through all that, and it didn't bother me. I've been through a lot of nonsense. The FBI showed up at Swami Dayanand Saraswati's ashram in Arshvidya Gurukulam in Pennsylvania, because I used to speak there a lot, and they wanted to find out what this place is all about. And, they went around asking a few questions, and they went away that, this is just an ashram, that's what it is. And then Jack Hawley started a research project at Columbia University called Hinduism Here meaning United States. And each team was supposed to, the students were put into teams. So one of somebody very close to me was a spy of mine. He was in one of those teams, and so he was always telling me what's going on. So each team was supposed to go to some dangerous Hindu and investigate. So one of them went to BAPS, one of them went to Swami Dayanand Saraswati's organization, one of them was supposed to investigate Infinity Foundation, like that. There were 3 or 4 target groups at that time. So all that happened, and then those results were presented at the American Academy of Religion, and I insisted that I want you to come and investigate us as much as you want, but on the condition that when you present the report, I'll be allowed to come and respond. So they allowed me to come, and I gave a response, and all that is online. So this was a period of very vibrant, dynamic back and forth going on, and this is what got the Indian community and Hindu community to finally realize that there is this guy who's doing all this fighting. So maybe, maybe there's something important. So I think, and then it was something I exposed on Ganesh, when they called Ganesh a limp phallus, and when they started insulting the goddess, and when they started insulting Sri Ramakrishna. So these things happened many years later, but when I started exposing how they are making fun of our deities and gurus, that is what got the Hindu community really upset. So it was an emotional, they pushed the emotional button. If you push the emotional buttons, our community will respond. But as long as it was a very serious intellectual analysis of the whole ecosystem, what's going on, people were not taking it too seriously. This is just something I just want to put on the table. Now, there has been a lot of progress. Obviously, we are here today. Such an event was not happening 25 years ago. There was no Nikunj. There weren't all these other kind of groups either. So now you have them organized. People are concerned that we have a problem, and there's a lot of noise being made, a lot of channels on the social media, a lot of virtual events, physical events going on, and many new icons and heroes have come up on our side. So it's a different kind of dynamics than it used to be. Now I no longer need to bother, because there's a lot of, when something happens, a lot of other people are fighting for our side. I don't need to bother. So I'm looking at the future. Where are things headed? What is going on that people are not looking at? Because the things that are already well known, the problems that are already well known, we have a whole lot of our own people who are concerned about it, such as the 1,100 people who registered here. But all is not well. I do want to discuss some of the issues. Let me see my time. Okay, I have time. So one of the main issues I see is, I have asked the question, where are the Pandavas? Where are the Pandavas today? I mean, you need to have people who are well trained. They need to have a whole lot of subject matter expertise. They need to have the debating skills. They need to know about the other side, how to bring them down. They need to work together. They need the support of bigger mechanisms. And this should not be once in a while when there's a problem that some Pandava comes up and fixes, fights back. This has to be an ongoing thing. We need a home team. A home team would be something which is permanent. Many of them have to be paid. We have our share of such people in India and in the United States who are paid. We also have people that are a lot of volunteers that do this work for us, but we need more. We are outgunned, outmanned, outfunded by our opponents. That's true. Opponents on the left-wing side, opponents on the Christian missionary side, opponents on the Islamic side, all kind of opponents. So we certainly have, while we are better off than we were, it's still running quite short of where we need to be. The recent last year there was this dismantling Hindutva conference, and let me tell you the good part and the bad part. That's like 15, 20 years after our movement started. So certainly we were able to galvanize a lot of people on our side, which is good. Thanks to Nikunj and many other people, we played our role. We called I had a personal discussion with the president of Rutgers University, various other places. So a lot of people came together. But there are two things that bother me from our side. One is there were multiple petitions. It was not like one petition. Some group A put up a petition, got a few hundred or a few thousand signatures, and a group B put up their own separate petition. Rather than having a team come together, draft a petition, make sure that everybody's included, there were multiple petitions. So we weren't even able to get our act together. While the other side was highly unified. They had 1,000 or more academic scholars all over the world signing up. The one group, one movement, one voice, one position paper. Second issue is that when that event was over, all this energy dissipated. But do you know, 2 more events have happened since, as bad as that one and worse. Some of the events that have happened since that dismantling Hindutva conference are even worse because people in the Biden administration have become part of it. is no longer just academic people. They were also getting the government into it. The government, this goes way back, the axis of, the nexus of government and academics and think tanks is pretty old in this country. And I'm writing on this quite a lot now, on what is the government up to. So while these things have happened from the opposing side, we haven't really responded. We are still talking about the dismantling of the conference as some kind of a historic event, but that was one out of many, and there have been other conferences since. So what happened is, this is something that my friend Kapila Vatsyayanji, who is no more, elderly person, mother figure, very friendly to me, very, very close. She used to describe this. Whenever I used to go to Delhi and go to her office and I would say, what do you think of this person or that event from our side? She would say, Rajiv, ye to Diwali ka pataka hai, Diwali cracker, which means what she was saying is that the Diwali cracker blows up, makes a lot of noise, lights up the sky, but then a minute later it's gone. And there's no value long term. It makes a lot of noise short term and it's highly visible. Everybody notices it and appreciates it, but then it's gone and there's nothing afterwards. So she felt that a lot of our events and our activities are like that. It's a momentary success. It's short term, feel good. We've done something, made a huge dhamaka. And then, a few weeks later, it's all forgotten, gone, nobody cares, and so on. There is no permanent structure to combat the series of dismantling things that others are doing against us. What you need is a permanent structure with assignments, papers that have to be produced by them, research that they have to do, longitudinal studies they have to do, constructive work and deconstructive work, both constructive, like our 14-volume series on history of Indian science and technology. We need many things like that. And deconstructive, where you're going and deconstructing various ideologies, various camps, various types of universities constantly. And this is not just a reaction to something went wrong. It's not that they have attacked us, so we get our people together and fire back. That's not it. You need a permanent army. You need a standing army. You need an intellectual army that's always doing these kind of things and not just reacting. So that is a serious issue we currently have. Also, I see it's a very serious, very sad thing that the new leaders who come up are all interested in instant limelight, getting into the spotlight, becoming popular in the social media, trampling over each other. There is no, kind of a collaborativeness. And I feel that a lot of people I trained that worked for us, and they were inspired by us. We have so many moving emails and messages from them, and so many videos of how much they were grateful, have decided to go off on their own. That's fine, but also some of them turned nasty. So I don't want to get into too many names, but there were, among the top video channels that you see in our space, I would say more than half of them they started out their lives, their careers in this area, working with Infinity Foundation. This is some of them in the 90s, some of them after 2000, some of them after 2010, but somewhere or other, and these are big names. They're quite well-established people now, but they don't want to come together. They each want to go off on their own. I think that's a weakness we have. So somebody should have played the role of a big umbrella. And I always propose to my friends at the RSS that they should have played the role, because they have the position, they have the capacity, they have the scale, they have the history to look after all these things. And so many little groups, there are entrepreneurial groups that want to go off on their own and do good things. Somebody needs to put them together. But, I cannot tell them what they should do. Their decision is that they will only do things with their own internal people, and they have a certain way of doing things. They're doing very good work, and they don't want to expand their role and their scope to include the Dharma community in general, even those who are not part of the Sangh per se or institutionally, but who are independent operators. They don't want to expand into that. So we don't have anybody doing the World Council of Churches, where all kind of independent churches exist, but they come together, and each of them is supported by this big umbrella organization. We don't have that umbrella of organizations like Islamic people have. the Council on Islamic Education, CAIR. There are many kind of groups like that. Hindus, we don't have a group like that, that everybody will respect and say, okay, that's the umbrella group we all belong to, and they don't play favorites. They're going to support whoever is doing good work. This is needed. And I proposed this to the Ramakrishna Mission. I proposed it to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I proposed it to all the gurus. I proposed it to the Sangh people. And so far, it seems that everybody is more interested in their own success as an organization and not taken on the big thing. So I also find that, when somebody's in trouble, when I've been in trouble, hardly anybody will come to my help. This is true. I call this the wounded warrior syndrome. In the military, you never leave a wounded warrior behind. If you are a group and one of your warriors is injured, you have to stay there. If he's dead, you got to bring his body back. If he's alive, you got to help him. You cannot just ditch him, abandon him. You cannot say he's a liability. So we don't want to worry about him. Such a military would die, because if you can't look after each other, then there is no teamwork. Nobody would stick their neck out and fight if they felt that, if I'm injured, they're going to ditch me. So why should I fight? I should be risk averse and play it safe. So what we have is a lot of people who will be big heroes when they are with each other in a like-minded group. But when it's time to stick their neck out, go into enemy territory and fight it out and take the risk, many of them don't want to do that. They want to encourage someone else to do it. And when that person gets hit, they're not there to help him. They'll just ditch him because he's a liability. So I became a liability many times in the last 25, 30 years, I must say, liability to our own people who would just then start blaming me, accusing me, making fun of me. So I'm saying all these things because I want people to understand this, to debate it, to figure out, we do need help for the wounded warrior. We need a mechanism such that if any one of us is attacked, then all of us have to come to defend him, protect him, give him some resources. Maybe he needs legal resources, financial resources. Maybe he needs moral support. Maybe he needs social media support. We ought to be there for each other, especially somebody who's sticking his neck out for our collective best interest. Now I will talk about individuals. Our individuals tend to be very emotional. I can do a tweet and get 50 times as many likes and retweets if I'm talking of either I'm hitting out against a well-known enemy or I'm giving some great big praise of our side, making people feel good. But if it's something, neither of these two extremes, if it is something thoughtful, if it's something analytical, if it's something, especially if I'm requiring them to read a little bit, to study a little bit, spend some time on it, hardly anybody seems interested. So we do not have good reading skills. I mean, people need to be much better read. I find that people think I only have a lot of intellectual relations and engagement with Westerners and Christians and leftists and all that. That is true, but I also have a few Muslims, and I also have a very large number of Chinese because I used to do business in China, so I've kept some contact in various ways. I find that reading skills are quite more developed among our opponents. They do read a lot. One of the reasons they read a lot is they've streamlined the scholarship. It comes from certain authorities. They respect whatever those people publish. They definitely read it. So it's not so haphazard. And it's kind of an organized, almost like a curriculum that all the activists are required to read. In our case, most people today are not even familiar with the writings I've done. I put so much effort into them. They're familiar with a video here and a video there. They don't even have attention span for 30 minutes of a video. They'll say, okay, tell me in 2 minutes. That's all I can do. So the attention span is very limited. People are very emotional. They want a feel-good injection, of, like a dose of a drug, right? Quickly, instant feel-good. That's kind of the state of a large part of our people. And so, thanks to a catchy vocabulary, we did coin catchy terms. Some of them we coined, some of them we repurposed existing terms. Some of these terms that started getting used, like breaking India and Hinduphobia and mutual respect and atrocity literature, and we have 108 terms that we've identified. Many of these terms are repurposing old terms that were out of circulation or they had a different meaning, and we brought it into the current context, and some terms we coined. So these terms have done good work. They have, because they don't require a lot of attention span, a lot of knowledge and reading skills and so on. So a large number of people can sort of participate by, using these buzzwords and become important. So that's good. At least at one level, people can participate emotionally. But we also need a larger group of people producing solid scholarship. And solid scholarship is something where, you spend multiple years per book. And like the new book I'm going to come out with, I'll talk in a moment just a little bit on it. It's a result of multiple years. It'll be 500-600 pages, and it'll just change the whole discourse, the whole framework of Breaking India. But I feel it's very difficult for me to find people with that kind of a commitment. Very difficult to find people who, because they would rather go from this event to that event and go to this show and go to Arnab and go to that guy and make some big noise. So all that's needed. But I want to point out the difference between activism and scholarship. There's a difference between activism and scholarship. Activism is needed, scholarship is needed, and some people can do both, but they are very distinct things. A scholar produces something which has a long life, long shelf life. It is deep research. It will withstand scrutiny, debate, argumentation, due diligence, all of that, cross-examination, and it has a life of its own. It has a long shelf life. Whereas activism, you go from one episode to another, one reaction to something to the next one, and it basically takes the ideas that the scholar has produced and sort of spins them, recycles them. So activists should be supporting the scholars, and scholars should be feeding the activists. Long ago, when Infinity Foundation was starting, I met some young people who were in medical school, and they would attend my talks at Ashvidya Gurukulam and follow me at various places I would go. And they wanted to create some kind of activist group. And so the understanding was that Infinity Foundation is a think tank. They are the activists. They will go to Washington, start an activist group and work with Congress and all that kind of stuff. And they launched that activist group, and it is called the Hindu American Foundation. But within a year or two, Harvard's Diana Eck convinced them to break up the relations with Infinity Foundation, because Harvard would then be helping them if they were not aligned with me. And they took that bait and they disconnected with me, and then they went off their own way, and then there was tension between us, and Harvard ditched them. Harvard played the smart game of disuniting Hindus, breaking the scholar and the activist into separate camps, making them tense, in the pretext of nurturing and helping the activist. But then they dumped them. They got nothing out of Harvard ever, and they know they won't. But it ended up spoiling the relations with me. So I can give you many such examples. Okay, and I have no hard feelings. I think Suhag is doing a very good job now. I'm very glad for her. I wish her well. I like to talk to her once in a while, and we collaborate. But I'm just giving you the history of how our people get poisoned very easily against each other, rather than being there and supporting each other. Now, let me since this is an endless topic, but let me give a few things, and then I'll close, and I'd like to have questions. I consider my commitment not to a neta, not to a political party or a government, not to the Rashtra, but to the Dharma. I'm repeating. So I want you to know 4 levels. The Dharma is what I support. That is my yajna. And my Swadharma is towards that. Now, if you look at the Vedas, Rig Veda, the word Rashtra is used as a means to an end. Rashtra is something that is the collective mobilization towards Dharma. Rashtra is not something you support for the sake of supporting some people and getting them into power or something. Rashtra has to be supported because its main purpose is to support the Dharma. And it has to support the Dharma, otherwise that is not the right kind of Rashtra. So Dharma is above Rashtra in terms of priorities for me. Rashtra, okay, is different from Rajya, also in the Vedas. I've done this huge amount of study, and this is one of my unpublished books that I'm just telling you a little bit about. Rashtra is not Rajya. The person called Rashtrapati in India is actually a Rajapati. He's head of state. He's head of the ruling of the country. But Rashtra is a different concept. It is the people, the ideology, the philosophy, the tradition, the land, all the sacred places, ancestors. Rashtra is all the material, physical, spiritual embodiment. Okay, right. And Rajya is the one organ. Like if it gives the analogy of you have a person and there are many organs. So similarly, Rashtra has many organs. One of them is the government. You need somebody, the Raja. The Raja, which is the government in the state in today's terms, that Raja is different from Rashtra. So we got three concepts now: Dharma, then Rashtra, and then Raja. Now, Raja, below that all is the Neta, okay, who's supporting or providing service as a Raja, towards Raja. And Raja exists as an organ to help out, nurture, and empower the Rashtra. And the Rashtra exists to support the Dharma. So what has happened is the other way around now. What has happened is people are into this Neta idolatry, and there is no accountability. There's no constructive criticism. Our tradition is not about sucking up to some Neta as an idol and all that. The Neta is not to be made into a Devata. This is bullshit. It's complete utter nonsense. It has nothing to do with our Vedic tradition. With all the respect for even the greatest and finest netas, we are supposed to question them, cross-examine them. In the Bhagavad Gita, you see in the Mahabharata, you see in all our texts, you see how sharp the debates are. Today, if you raise issues with good intention, with my whole life dedicated to this cause, I mean, I don't have to prove my good intentions. I've given up everything I could, tan, man, dhan, towards this cause. But the moment I raise issues and interrogate and have some critique and doubt with a constructive posture, I'm hit, I'm attacked. That who are you? Why are you doing this? This guy, I mean, it's almost like I've attacked some kind of a devata and all the fellows are going to come after me. This is not healthy. Does not build a healthy, vibrant Rashtra. What we have to build is a healthy, vibrant Rashtra. And the Raja is not there just to win elections and be power. They have to be there as a means towards the Rashtra. And the individual Neta has to be a servant, has to be providing the service towards all of this. And the public has to be able to critique and evaluate. And the job of a public intellectual like me is to do that. And it is not out of disrespect. It could be that we have the best Neta ever we had in modern times, but even so, it is our job to keep them on their toes and to give them feedback and to be very objective and analytical about it. And so I have no regrets about taking these positions from a very objective standpoint, which I often do. And I hope the people understand that I have no bad intentions, and we should have a mechanism which is not just like-minded people talking, praising each other and all that stuff in a very controlled environment, where we should be able to have position papers that argue, debate, and things like that. So that's the kind of background I come from both my corporate life and also from the dharma that I've studied. The vibrant debate, disagreement, dissent, all of that should be encouraged. Regarding where is the Kurukshetra today? Well, first of all, I will tell you that a large amount of our organizations and institutions have been infiltrated by decoys, by people who have Hindu names, by people who talk like the right kind of things, who may even have a name that says they're defending Hinduism or protecting Hindu human rights and all that, but they're compromised. And I don't want to go into too many details, but I'm writing a book on this. This is going to be a big 500-600 page book. I'm only 45 days away from finishing it. I've been at it for a couple of years, working on it from 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week, working very hard at it. And I want to finish this because I think this will be a huge bombshell. Many familiar people are implicated, but a lot of people you would not suspect A lot of people you think are really goody nice guys, they are implicated, and I am going to put out evidence and background details on what's going on, and I'll defend it. I'll defend the book because it's a tough book, and it's needed. So the Breaking India forces have infiltrated our organizations, and the Breaking India forces have appropriated more people than before. In the first Breaking India book was mainly Christian missionaries going after village people, then some Islamists and Dravidianists and left wing people, Maoists and so on. All that is in chapter 19 of Breaking India book. But now there's many more people. There's many more categories of ideologies and many more kinds of people who are into this. So to close and take your questions, I want to just tell you a little bit about our plans for 2022 from Infinity Foundation. We have 4 books coming. 4 books. One of them is my personal book that for which, by the way, I have a new co-author. I won't announce today, but this is a new person who's not been an author before. I'm very proud of this person, and this is going to be it is a great partnership, and this will be one of the brilliant authors in our movement in the future. So that is one. But the 3 other books are not by me. This is the good news. Our mentoring of young scholars is now producing results. So these 3 books, one of them is a major 500-page Hindi translation of one of my books, but done entirely by independent people. But the other 2 books are collections of articles by 8-10 people each. And so this means that, good 15-20 new scholars are being born in these 2 books. I may write the introduction, and I'll certainly promote it and do everything I should do to help it out. But the credit goes to these authors. They are really working hard, and you will see that the quality, the standard of scholarship is extremely high. I mean, I have not let anybody get away with some rubbish and ad hominem attacks and emotions and things they can't substantiate. Standard of rigor is very high. So we are producing now work which is not just from me, but from other people, because that has to be done. That's what I wanted to say. And my, terabytes of storage, a lot of videos, a lot of online storage, a lot of proceedings of meetings, and a lot of private information that we've gathered, which is not in the public domain. So this will be probably launched in the middle of the year. That's my best guess. At which time I'll work with, I've already promised to Madhu Kishwar that I'll definitely have her interview me, because she's been very close to me. And I think it's only appropriate, since she was so much in the Breaking India 1.0, that now when we launch the Breaking India 2.0, she has to be part of it. And certainly I would invite CoHNA and many others, whoever wants. So thank you very much, all of you, for listening. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the whole Breaking India journey.